There is a battle at the very end of The Lord of the Rings, not a small skirmish, not a footnote. The last battle of the entire War of the Ring. And in this battle there is no Aragorn, no Gandalf, no king, no wizard, no army of the West. Just 4 young hobbits walking home, only to find their homeland already conquered, their neighbors enslaved, and an old enemy waiting for them in the one place they thought was safe forever. Peter Jackson never filmed it, not a single frame. And once you understand why this scene exists and why it was cut, you start to realize something unsettling. The version of The Lord of the Rings that the world fell in love with is not the whole story. It is a beautiful, faithful, devastating shadow of it. There is an entire hidden layer of grief, sacrifice, and consequence sitting underneath the films that almost nobody talks about. 10 events. 10 pieces of the real War of the Ring that never made it to the screen. And by the end, you will understand exactly why that final Hobbit-led battle had to be cut, and why its absence quietly changed the meaning of the whole story. Let's start near the beginning, with a blade. In the films, the 4 hobbits leave the Shire and walk almost directly into danger, chased by a Black Rider, saved by Strider at Bree. Simple, clean. But in the book, before any of that, they vanish into the old forest, a place so old and so resentful of 2-legged creatures that the trees themselves try to kill them. They are saved by a strange, golden-booted, song-singing figure named Tom Bombadil, a being so ancient that even Elrond cannot say what he is, only that he was here before the rivers and the trees, before the elves themselves. Tolkien never explained him. Some scholars think he is meant to stay unexplained, a deliberate mystery, a reminder that Middle-earth is older and stranger than even its wisest characters understand. But the forest is not the dangerous part. The Barrow-downs are. The hobbits are captured by a Barrow Wight, an undead spirit haunting an ancient burial mound, and they very nearly die there, trapped in the dark with a corpse light glowing around them. Tom Bombadil saves them again, and from that tomb he gives each hobbit an ancient blade, forged long ago by the men of Westerness to fight the Witch King of Angmar himself. Remember that detail. Hold on to it, because one of those exact blades, taken from a forgotten tomb in a forgotten chapter that the films never showed you, is the same blade that Merry Brandybuck drives into the back of the Witch King's knee on the Pelennor fields, the single wound that makes his death possible at all. In the movies, it is just a sword. In the book, it is a weapon with a destiny, sleeping in the dark for thousands of years, waiting for the one moment it was always meant for. Cut the barrow, and you cut the meaning. That was only the first thread Jackson chose to leave behind. At the ford of Bruinen, the films show Arwen riding to save Frodo, racing the Nazgûl, calling on the river itself to rise and drown them. It is one of the most beloved scenes in the trilogy. It is also not what happens in the book at all. The rider who saves Frodo is an elf lord named Glorfindel, and his presence is not a small detail. It is a quiet thunderclap for anyone who knows what he is. Glorfindel died in the First Age, thousands of years earlier, killed defending fleeing refugees from a Balrog in the fall of Gondolin. He was sent back from the halls of Mandos, reborn into Middle-earth, one of the only beings in the entire Legendarium to die and live again. When he rides to the ford and the Nazgûl's horses panic and flee from him before he even draws a weapon, it is not magic. It is recognition. Evil things remember what destroyed a Balrog once before. Jackson gave that moment to Arwen instead, for a very understandable reason. Without it, Arwen barely exists in the first film at all. But the cost was real. An entire layer of the Legendarium's deep history, the idea that the War of the Ring is being quietly shaped by survivors of wars fought thousands of years earlier, simply vanished from the screen. And it would not be the last time the films erased a war that came before this one. Theoden King's introduction in The Two Towers is one of the most chilling scenes in the trilogy, an old man hollowed out by Wormtongue's poison. But the films never tell you why he was already broken before Gandalf arrived. In the book, Theoden has just lost his son. Theodred, heir to Rohan, was killed defending the fords of Isen against Saruman's first major offensive, a real battle, fought and lost weeks before the story we see on screen even begins. Theoden is not just an old man under a spell. He is a grieving father, manipulated in the exact moment he is most vulnerable by the one man he should have been able to trust. The films give you the poison. The book gives you the wound the poison was poured into. But perhaps no omission costs the story more quietly than what happens after the Battle of the Pelennor Fields ends. In the films, Aragorn leads the army of the dead to the harbor of Umbar. The threat is broken, and that is essentially the last we hear of it. In the book, something far stranger happens. The fleet of black-sailed ships that the armies of Gondor see approaching on the river, the ships everyone assumes are the dreaded corsairs of Umbar coming to finish what the orcs could not, are not what they appear to be. As they draw closer, the banner unfurls. It is Aragorn's own standard, the White Tree and the Seven Stars, sailing in not as an enemy, but as the King Gondor has been waiting 1,000 years to see again. It is one of the most powerful reveals in the entire book. Hope disguised as doom until the very last second. And the films compress it into a single shot of Aragorn already standing on the deck. And once the battle is finally won, the wounded are not simply healed off-screen. They are carried into the houses of healing, where an old woman named Ioreth says something almost in passing that becomes one of the most quietly important lines Tolkien ever wrote, that the hands of a king are the hands of a healer, and by this the rightful king shall be known. Aragorn does not announce his kingship with a crown or a sword. He proves it by saving Eowyn, Faramir, and Merry with his own hands, asking nothing in return, refusing to be named king while there is still suffering to attend to first. It is arguably the truest demonstration of who Aragorn actually is in the entire saga, and the films leave it out entirely. Meanwhile, far from Minas Tirith, an entire second war was being fought that the films never even mention. While Sauron's main army marched on Gondor, a second force struck Erebor and Dale, the kingdoms of dwarves and men built decades earlier in the ashes of the very story told in The Hobbit. King Brand of Dale and King Dain, Ironfoot, the same Dain who fought at the Battle of the Five Armies as a young dwarf lord, both die defending their people in this forgotten siege. It is a brutal reminder that the War of the Ring was never a single battle in a single city. It was a continent-wide catastrophe. And somewhere in the north, an entire generation of characters audiences had grown to love from The Hobbit were dying in a battle that exists only on the page. And the corruption was not only happening on battlefields. The films showed Denethor as already broken, paranoid, half-mad with grief by the time we meet him. The book shows you the slower horror underneath that. Denethor has been using a palantír, one of the seeing stones of old Númenor, for years, secretly contesting wills with Sauron himself through it. Every time he looks into that stone, Sauron is looking back, feeding him true images carefully selected to break his spirit, showing him real defeats, real losses, real despair, never lies, only the worst truths, presented without hope. By the time Pippin meets him, Denethor has been losing a private psychological war against the Dark Lord for years, alone, telling no one, slowly convincing himself that resistance is already pointless. He is not simply unstable. He is a man who has been quietly tortured in his own study, every single night, and never told a soul. Even Saruman's fall is deeper in the book than the films suggest. The Astari, the order of wizards Saruman and Gandalf both belong to, were sent to Middle-earth specifically forbidden from ruling through force or fear, sent only to counsel, encourage and unite the free peoples against Sauron. Saruman's true tragedy is not simply that he turned evil. It is that he became exactly the thing he was sent to stop, ruling through fear, breeding an army through cruelty, all while believing until the very end that his methods were simply more practical than Gandalf's idealism. The films give you his betrayal. The book gives you the slow, prideful logic that led him there. And after the ring is destroyed, after Sauron falls, the films move quickly toward an ending. The book does not let go so easily. Years pass on the page. Sam Gamgee becomes mayor of the Shire, raises a family, and eventually, decades later, sails west himself, the last of the ring-bearers to leave Middle-earth. Legolas and Gimli, an elf and a dwarf, peoples who have distrusted each other for thousands of years, sail into the west together as the closest of friends, a quiet final proof of everything the Fellowship actually accomplished. and Aragorn, after a long and famous reign, chooses the hour of his own death, laying down his life willingly rather than fading into weakness. Arwen, who gave up her immortality to be with him, is left utterly alone, and she walks to Seren Amroth, the hill where they first declared their love centuries earlier, and there, alone, with no one beside her, she dies. Tolkien gives her one of the most devastating final images in the entire Legendarium, and the films give her almost none of it, which brings us finally back to where we started. After everything, after the ring is destroyed, after the king returns and the war is won, the four hobbits ride home expecting peace. Instead, they find the Shire ruined, trees cut down, homes torn apart, a petty tyranny installed by ruffians under the command of a broken, bitter man calling himself Sharky. It is Saruman, stripped of his power, his voice, his magic, reduced to one final spiteful act of cruelty against the one place in Middle-earth that never wanted any part of his war. And the hobbits, the same small, soft-spoken travelers who once needed rescuing at every turn, do not run. They organize. They arm the Shire. They fight the Battle of Bywater, and they win it themselves, with no wizard, no king, no fellowship beside them. Frodo, scarred and changed by everything he carried, refuses to let them kill Saruman even now, offering him one final chance at mercy. Saruman refuses it, and dies anyway, killed instead by Wormtongue in one last act of betrayal, right there on the doorstep of Bag End. This is why the omission matters more than any other on this list. The Scouring of the Shire is not a side quest. It is the entire point of the journey, made literal. The hobbits who left as children come home as someone else entirely, carrying the war with them even into the one place they thought the war could never reach, and proving, in the quietest and most personal battle of the whole saga, that they no longer need anyone to save them. Peter Jackson cut it because, narratively, audiences wanted the story to end the moment the ring fell. But Tolkien knew better. He knew that the truest cost of war is never the battle itself. It is what you find waiting for you when you finally come home. 10 events. 10 quiet tragedies, reveals, and reckonings, sitting just beneath the surface of a story the whole world thinks it already knows. And perhaps that is the most haunting thing about Middle-earth. No matter how many times you watch those films, no matter how many times you think you have reached the end, there is always another door in those pages that has never once been opened on screen.